Émigrés, exiles and refugees, foreigners everywhere. That's the evocative title and guiding theme of this year's Venice Biennale, the oldest and largest showcase of contemporary art in the world. Our arts editor Eve Jackson is there for the opening of this 60th edition. Eve, hi. Tell us what's in store.
This breathtaking floating city hosts what many people call the Olympics of the art world every 2 years. Now, this is the original art biennale on which all others in the world are based, and it's also the place to see the world's best artists all in one place. Now, the last edition, which was in 2022, had record attendance. This year's event opens on Saturday. It runs until November, and in that time, it's expected that the city will welcome around 800,000 visitors. Now, the Biennale consists of dozens of exhibitions. There is an enormous central exhibition, and there are 90 national pavilions in which individual countries celebrate their best artists. And although this might seem, Olivia, like a la-di-da art event in one of the world's prettiest cities, the real world is very much present here. War, refugees, colonialism and conflict are the key themes of this year's event.
Those are the sort of hard-hitting issues that we're seeing in the headlines at the moment too, of course. The Israel-Hamas war is having an impact on the Biennale.
It certainly is. Now, there's a collective of pro-Palestinian activists that are called the Art Not Genocide Alliance, or ANGA for short, and they've been calling for the exclusion of Israel at this year's Biennale. In an open letter, they criticised the military action in Gaza. The letter condemns what it says are the double standards of the Biennale organisers. Now, 2 years ago, the organisers condemned Russia's war against Ukraine. They've remained silent on the current situation in the Middle East. Now, more than 23,000 people are said to have signed this open letter, which is calling for Israel to be excluded. The Biennale has rejected that call. However, the doors of the Israel Pavilion are closed anyway because the artist, Israel's featured artist, who's called Ruth Patir, has said the show will only open when a ceasefire and a hostage agreement has been reached. Let's have a listen now to the Venice Biennale's artistic director, Adriano Pedrosa.
It's not Israel's decision, it's the curator's decision and the artist's decision. And I think it's a very courageous decision. And I think also I respect it, of course, enormously. It's their own decision. And I think it's a very wise decision.
Now, as you said, Eve, that was the Biennale's artistic director, Adriano Pedrosa. He's from Brazil, and this is the first time that someone from the Southern Hemisphere is in charge of the event.
It certainly is, and Adriano Pedrosa has chosen the theme Foreigners Everywhere for this year's Biennale. He's invited a lot of artists from the global south. He wants to highlight the less privileged and less industrialised regions. Now, there is a particular emphasis this year on celebrating indigenous artists from countries such as Brazil, Peru, New Zealand and the United States. Many artists are talking about the subject of colonialism in their work, in their exhibitions, including artists who come from Ireland, France, Portugal, Ethiopia and the UK. We can have a listen now to the UK's representative. It is the filmmaker and artist John Akomfra. He's been talking about colonialism in his work since the 1980s.
This feels like a very significant moment for artists of colour, you know, because I'm in the British Pavilion. Next to me is a French one with an artist, Julian, who I love a lot, you know, of African origin. And then next to me is a Canadian pavilion that has, you know, biracial artists, again of African heritage. So, you know, that's certainly not happened before. That 3 major pavilions have artists of colour inhabiting, occupying, making work in them. And that feels like a breakthrough.
Yeah, that's true, because in the past, the Biennale often shone a light on Western artists, but in recent years, that's been changing.
It certainly has, and this year Africa also aims to buck the trend of underrepresentation. There are 12 African pavilions. Benin, Tanzania, Ethiopia and Senegal will have pavilions here, national pavilions, for the very first time in its history. Ethiopia says this is an extremely significant moment for the African nation. Here's the Ethiopian artist representing their country, Tesfaye Jessa. He's known for his paintings depicting human bodies in the centre of domestic situations, and he tackles race and identity in his work.
It's a great thing, but still it's a beginning. You know, Africa, there are 54 countries, and only like about 12 more countries are represented or having their own pavilion in Venice. Still a small amount, but it's a great beginning, but we have to work towards, you know, the increment of, you know, other African countries, so that, you know, the Venice Biennale would be truly international in exhibition.
There we go. Tesfaye Gesser is one of more than 330 artists whose work is on display here at the Venice Biennale until November. If you are an art lover, as I know you are, Olivia, this is the place to be.
Indeed, a whole world of art among those romantic waterways. Thank you so much for that update, Eve. Now, we're staying in Venice because the lagoon's also hosting an artistic odyssey thanks to a catamaran, which functions as a floating museum. The Art Explora Foundation has downed anchor in the maritime city. It's part of a grand tour around the Mediterranean. Our reporters caught up with the crew in Malta when the boat was there last month. Here's more from Jean-Émile Jamin and Valentine Erba.
It's the world's first travelling museum boat. Since March 21st, this catamaran has been welcoming hundreds of visitors to discover an exhibition on a Mediterranean theme.
The Mediterranean is interlaced with major issues of interest to our artists, both social and environmental, and it's a relatively small sea. We were able to plan around 20 stopovers over a 2.5-year period and reach a lot of people.
3 Made in France installations are on board the 47-metre-long catamaran. First, a sound journey across the Mediterranean on the boat's roof. Then a film about Mediterranean women from antiquity to present day. Finally, spectators settle in for a voyage of discovery of some works in France's most iconic museum, the Louvre.
You had the full room of yourself, so it was perfect.
I have never been to Louvre, so for me everything's new, so I was so excited.
On the quayside too, artists from both sides of the Mediterranean are given the spotlight. Several times a day, live performances take place. Alex Camilleri presents his film Lutzu, the story of a Maltese fisherman who must choose between European Union aid and local culture.
I reflected on my own experience and the choices that my parents had to make. Anytime we get to show the film, both locally but also to an audience close to the sea, I think that really maximizes the enjoyment of the film.
Circa Ella presents Nuye, a dance and circus show from Catalonia.
It's nice because you can tell it's a different context from the festivals we usually see, and it's good to get out of that dynamic, to see cultural projects that mix arts from different sectors. It's great.
The festival, which is entirely free of charge, will be held in every port visited. An artistic village will even be set up on Marseille's harbour in June.
And we're wrapping up the show with a quick look at other artwork on show at this year's Biennale, with pieces from Pakistani-British artist Osman Yousefzada, artwork from Turkey's Pavilion too. That's all on show in Venice until November this year. Do check in with us next time on Arts 24 on our social media channels too. Otherwise, there's more news coming up just after this.